This recent innovation from American Magic is clever, it's probably fast, and despite a recent inquiry, I think it's within the rules. It's got all the hallmarks of something that should really excite the Mozzie Sales fanbase. Magic as a team has run an awesome campaign, and the boat they've launched, low and sleek, is exactly what I would have raced with. Add on to this the story arc of rising from the ashes after the disastrous capsize of Patriot, and despite being American, they're probably working their way to being most people's second team in the competition. But there's something about it which doesn't quite sit right. And if you're a sailor, it shouldn't. So this is a Mary Rose. It sank with almost all of its 600 crew. And at first that doesn't seem really odd. It was a medieval ship belonging to a Tudor king, and presumably people couldn't really swim in those days. But I was surprised when I went to the museum to find out that's not really the full story. The ship actually sank exactly where the America's Cup World Series was hosted in front of Portsmouth, just over a kilometre from the beach. And it sank in 12 metres of water. To put that in perspective, the ship itself is 12 metres high from keel to topsides, and the mast stayed poking above the water for decades afterwards. So how come so close to shore and with a ship still to cling to with rigging above the water, did so many people die? Well, the answer is this netting. It was put on board to make them more efficient in battle and protect the gunners and keep them firing. But when the ship capsized, it trapped the crew beneath. Within sight of the surface, lapping around the rigging, they would have drowned, trapped by the nets put over them. And so, when I look at this innovation from Magic, I kind of wince. I can see where Magic are going. Like I said, it's clever, it's probably fast because it shields the crew from the wind, makes those cockpit apertures seem smaller, especially in the proximity to the mainsail for those inboard crew positions. And I think they're within the rules to do it. So the apertures are defined by an area, a size, and they actually have to be slightly bigger for recumbent cyclors, which Magic have, which is a key part of their design to lower the freeboard and lower the volume. But there's an exception in that rule, and it's one of the last rules agreed. And it wasn't just agreed between the defender and the challenger, but all teams participated in the drafting of this rule. And the exception was put in was to add an extra 0.3 metres of crew coverage from kind of miscellaneous components. Magic have taken this and made their 0.3 metres a kind of mesh honeycomb that can sit over the crew cockpits. Now, I've had my eye on this rule for quite a long time because I thought that was quite a big wriggle room to be given to miscellaneous components. And I actually commented on when I was on the Bar Karate podcast when I said this.
Who's going to be done for cheating first? What will be the first controversy?
Covered area is going to be a big one because obviously all the teams are pushing just to completely cover everyone. They'd be below deck if the aero team had their way. But there's a bit of a safety angle, obviously. Yeah, someone needs to pull the grinders out when they do pitch pole. I reckon some team will turn up with some pretty unique fairings, which will all but
kind of zip themselves in.
That was back over a year ago, and sure enough, the rule controversy has emerged this week with a rule inquiry. Now, the ins and outs of the inquiry are suggesting that this honeycomb structure from American Magic is altering the boundary flow and therefore isn't allowed by another rule. Personally, I think this is a bit of a weak argument because, first of all, it's more of a macro thing rather than a kind of a boundary layer pattern. And it's actually kind of creating a whole new boundary flow in a different place than would have been the case if they had an open aperture. So I think Magic are within the rules on this. I just don't like where they're at from a safety point of view. Now, there is another rule, that's a time period that crews have to be able to get themselves out and off the boat in, and Magic may still be able to meet this rule. But critically, the cockpit apertures must be preserved, because not always when you capsize are you functioning and able to get yourself out. If you're knocked unconscious, then you're completely reliant on another person coming and pulling you out. Or if you snagged or caught on something, like these cyclaws may be with clipping pedals, then you're relying on a diver coming in and freeing you. The other element is if this rule inquiry goes through and it's seen that these type of covers, mesh covers, are legal, then other teams may be forced to put similar covers in place. And they've got kind of smaller apertures as well, so they'll be almost completely covered. And I kind of fear for the safety of the fleet. And I think this is a safety thing, and it's acknowledged by American Magic. So going back again to the Bar Karate podcast, this time Britton Ward was talking about the hull design from Magic, and he talked about the cyclaws, and he said one possible benefit of them was that it was easy to get out in emergency.
And the recumbent cockpits by rule are a little bit bigger, so it's probably easier to get the guys out if there's any issues.
Yeah.
Are we making an obvious sacrifice for crew safety? And I'm not sure you can always rely on the crews themselves to put their hands up and question this. They're under a huge amount of pressure. It means it's their life dreams and ambitions to be on these boats racing. Someone high in the team needs to make these decisions. On top of this, these cyclaws are new to the sport. They've probably not been trapped under the water before. They've not had that panic feeling of being stuck. Not in a real scenario, only in the safety training. So I'm kind of looking towards Terry Hutson. Terry was also involved and actually trapped when Patriot capsized.
As I straight away was underwater and pinned underneath the mainsail. As Sicho went by me, he could see that my head was underwater and that I was trapped. Cooper grabbed his knife and cut the left one and got me out.
If he'd been covered by a mesh, would that crew member have been able to get in and cut him out? For me, these covers are within the rules, but I'd really like to find a way of making them illegal. Or I'd like a truce between the teams and agree that apertures for crews to get out the boat and be rescued are something we can leave aside. I'm not monetizing this video, there's no links in the description, there's no sponsors on the walls. This is just something I felt necessary to report to you and have a discussion in the wider sailing community about. I did contact American Magic for comment on this and haven't heard anything back, but I would be interested to hear their view on the safety aspect of this and how it might be mitigated. That's everything for me. Take care and let's enjoy some racing.